Hey riders and racers, and welcome back for another live stream. Today's live stream is a video that I did about a week ago, and then realized that the whole video had no audio after I'd just been through a 20-minute video. So today we're going to be talking about using a particular type of group of foods or superfoods for your next hard enduro race for the 3-hour mark or 3 or 4 hour mark. So I guess the problem that you're trying to solve here through your nutrition, okay, and through food, hey Matthew, is you want to be able to ride harder for longer periods of time. And at the end of the day, that's why we do training, that's why we do nutrition, that's why we try and do flexibility work, why we try and sleep well. All of these types of things we want to ride harder for longer periods of time. Food is definitely important for this because food is your fuel tank. It's like for your bike. You put shitty fuel in the bike, it's not going to perform very well. You put good fuel in the bike, it performs a lot better. Your body is no different. So I'm going to go through the pre-race, during race, post-race nutrition strategy that I use with our riders, and hopefully you can implement that into your own riding. So the first thing that we need to focus on is what's happening pre-race. Okay, so this goes from really the night before or the day before. It depends how seriously you take your riding and how much effort you want to put in. But really we're looking at the day before racing. So if you're going racing on Sunday, you've got a 3-hour hard enduro. On Saturday night, you want to start to increase the amount of carbs that you have in your body. Okay, now when you go and ride and you go and race, carbohydrates are your main fuel source. Okay, they're your energy tank. That doesn't mean we don't use proteins aren't effective or fats aren't effective for our body. It just means carbohydrates are the dominant fuel source or energy source that we're using when you go and race. So what we want to do is we want to make sure our body is topped up with carbs, and we've got our carb tank at 100% before your riding and racing has even started. So this starts the day before, specifically the night before. So if you're racing on Sunday, Saturday night, when you get to dinner, have your normal protein, have your fats, have your veggies, and then we want to increase what's called complex carbs. So complex carbs are high in starch. They take a little bit longer to break down than simple carbs, roughly 3 to 4 hours. And so what we want to do is start getting complex carbs in, which are going to top up what's called our glycogen stores. So glycogen stores is what happens is when our carbs go into our body, if that energy is not used within a period of time, it goes and gets stored in our muscle as glycogen. Okay, and once those glycogen stores are filled up, then any excess carbohydrates that are going in are going and being stored as body fat. So what we want to do first is just make sure we've got our muscles and liver full of glycogen. We've got our carb tank at 100%. So complex carbs are things like potatoes, sweet potatoes, brown rice, quinoa, pumpkin. Some great sources of complex carbs to start with. So again, you don't want to just have a whole plate full of sweet potato. You just want to increase the amount of complex carbs, or if you're not having any complex carbs the night before, make sure you're putting a focus on getting those in. So that's the night before. You also want to make sure the morning of your racing. So if you're doing a hard enduro, 3-hour, and let's say racing starting at, I don't know what time it would normally start. Let's say you're starting at 9 o'clock. Roughly 3 to 4 hours before, you want to get another serving of complex carbs in, okay, with the rest of your food. Still with proteins, fats, veggies, but you want to make sure we're getting more complex carbs in 3 to 4 hours before you start racing. So if racing's at 9 o'clock, we go 8, 7, 6, so about 5 to 6 o'clock is when you want to be getting complex carbs in. So usually what that's going to mean is you're going to have to be eating relatively early for when you go and race, but which isn't usually too hard for race day because you're usually getting up early anyway. So that's where we want to increase our complex carbs. Again, you're not just having a bowl full of sweet potato in the morning. You want to make sure you have your proteins, your fats, your carbs, and veggies, okay? But we're just making sure we're getting complex carbs and just make sure that's a priority. So that's 3 to 4 hours beforehand. Now, the reason you want to have these types of carbs 3 to 4 hours before your race is because they take 3 to 4 hours to digest, okay, at minimum. If you're lazy and you're racing at 9 and you try and get your complex carbs in at 8 o'clock, then what you're going to find is you're going to feel like shit when you go and ride because you're going to have a stomach full of complex carbs which haven't digested yet, and you're also not going to get the energy from them because your body hasn't had enough time to break them down and use them. So then as we get closer to racing, so if we're starting off racing at 9 o'clock, at about somewhere between 8 and 8:30, you want to get some simple carbs in. So simple carbs are already broken down into sugar, okay? And they're very rapidly digested by the body because they're already in sugar form. So like your sweet potatoes, brown rice, quinoa, they all get broken down into sugar just over a much longer period of time. Okay, because your body has to break them down from complex carbs down into simple carbs for your body then to use the energy. When we just put simple carbs in straight away, it gives you a very quick energy boost, a very high energy boost, but not very long and not very sustainable. So it's important when we're putting the simple carbs in, we need to make sure that it's giving us rapid amounts of energy, okay, or energy, a lot of energy in a short period of time. We need to make sure our body's in a state to be able to use that energy and burn it off. So if you're having simple carbs the night before for bed or 3 to 4 hours before, then you're going to miss the boat and you're probably going to feel like shit because you're going to have a big crash off the other side because you're not using the energy. So 30 minutes before, what are simple carbs? Some examples could be fruit, could be a carb gel, could be like lollies and chocolates. There's something that are a simple carb. It's not something I really recommend. I'd prefer to use, if preference is use fruit or use a carb drink. You could use like a carb bar. You could even use like glucose tablets or things like that. Really anything that's in sugar form. Easy for the body to digest and use as energy. So that's roughly between 8 and 8:30 for starting at 9. Then when we start at 9 o'clock, so we've done all of our pre-work. So what we've done beforehand from the night before to 9 o'clock on race day morning on the Sunday is we want to do everything we can to put our body in the best position possible to perform, okay, and give us a head start. And that's where most riders and racers skip that bit. They just worry about their energy and how they're feeling during the race or at the end of the race when they feel like shit. Whereas majority of the work with your nutrition is done beforehand. So during the race, we've got 2 jobs. We've got to top up our carbs and we need to put in a little bit of protein as well. So for every hour of riding that you do, we need to use 30 to 45 grams of simple carbs and we need to have 15 grams of protein going into our body. Now, from a strength and conditioning point of view, from a coaching point of view, that's what we need to do to have your body performing at its best. But when it comes to applying that to racing, this can be quite different because sometimes you might not, for a 3-hour enduro, you might only have, say, 1 fuel stop, and you might do that at an hour and a half. So that doesn't mean have extra stops at an hour or 2-hour mark. It means we've got to get your nutrition sorted really, really well in your one break that you do have during the race. And we also need to pay attention to what's happening, what you're putting in your camelback. So during your race, to get your 30 to 45 grams of carbs in, there's a couple of ways you can do that. Number one, you could have a carb drink. I think carb drinks, depending on the carb drink you have, usually about 30 grams of carbs. So you could have a carb drink mixed in, say, 300-400 mils of water at your fuel stop. So let's say for this example, you're doing an hour and a half of riding, you've got a fuel stop, and then you've got another hour and a half of riding. At your fuel stop, you could have a carb drink with 30 grams of carbs, and you could also mix in 15 grams of protein. Usually a scoop of protein is about 25 grams of protein, So you could put, say, half a scoop of protein in and mix that with your carb drink. That's one option that you can use. The other option you can use is fill your camelback up with Powerade. Powerade's the normal Powerade, not the special different forms of zero sugar ones. It's quite high in sugar and and obviously has electrolytes in it as well, which is great. That's another option. You can use, go through Powerade. You want to go through roughly a 600 ml bottle of Powerade for every hour of riding. And again, you need your 15 grams of protein. So you can either mix that in your camelback, or the other thing you can do is just get a half a protein shake ready for your fuel stop. So when you have your fuel stop, you've already been getting your carbs in through the hour through your camelback, and then for protein, you can get that in at your fuel stop. So that will make sure that we're good to go during the race. So the whole goal of during race nutrition is we're just topping up what we've lost. Okay, we've done all the hard work before to get our fuel tank up to 100%. Your fuel tank then is you're chewing through like this. What we're doing when we get to the fuel stop is we're just bumping it back up, so we're not redlining at the bottom and scraping the bottom of the barrel when we get to hour 2, 2.5, 3 or more. Once we've done that, then we get to post-race, after the race. So immediately after the race, we want to start getting the recovery process started. So again, have a full protein shake, okay, at the end of the race, and maybe have some carbs as well, or have a carb drink. The reason we use liquids and not proper foods is because when your body's riding, when we're doing any type of intense activity, our body's under a lot of stress. And when our body's under a lot of stress, our digestive system gets shut down. So when our digestive system is shut down, our body's not in a place to receive food. Okay, it's not in a place to break down food and to extract nutrients. So the food's just going to sit there. It's a bit like just doing, a whole heap of cardio work on the rowing machine and then me trying to give you a roast. You're not going to feel like eating. Okay, your body needs to settle down and get out of that stress response and needs to relax. So that's why we use liquids, protein shakes, supplements, carb drinks, instead of using, a steak for protein or using, I don't know, like a whole heap of solid carbs, right? Like, especially like complex carbs. That's why we don't use those while we're riding and racing. So straight after, have your shake with carbs. And then a little bit after that, maybe wait a couple of hours. You'll know when your body's, if it's been a really, really strenuous race for you, you'll find it will take longer for your body to calm down and for your appetite to come back. If it's a relatively easy race for you or lower intensity race, then you'll find your appetite will come back a lot quicker. So when you feel like eating, don't force it too early, okay? When you feel like eating, you feel hungry, then get some good quality food in, okay? Get proteins in, fats in, carbs in, complex carbs, okay? And also veggies as well. So make sure you're getting plenty of food in to help give your body the building blocks it needs to aid in the recovery process. So the whole goal is you should be good to go the next day. If you have trouble where every time you go and ride, you feel like you can't train the next day or can't do anything, and it's hard to just get out of bed, then chances are there's things there that are breaking down your nutrition that you're not doing well, either before the race, during the race, or after the race. And you tend to get stuck in a little bit of a loop where you're trying to get fitter and you're trying to get stronger, but every time you go and ride, you get really, really sore and really fatigued. So you get really, really sore and really fatigued. So you don't train. You find it hard to get it stuck into training hey, Patrick, you find it hard to get stuck into training at the start of the week. And because you find it hard to get stuck into training at the start of the week, you miss half the week of training. And then you don't want to train at the end of the week because you know you're going to be sore because you haven't been training. And then you want to go riding again and be fresh to go riding again on the next week. So it really comes down to putting the work into your recovery system. And when I go through this stuff, I know I talk about it as in like a very black and white. It's like, just do this, this, and that. I understand that you're probably not going to get this nailed 100%. You're not going to get exactly 3 to 4 hours before, exactly half an hour before, exactly 30 to 45 grams of carbs, or exactly 15 grams of protein. Because racing changes all the time. Like, you might be doing an enduro race, and maybe it's beneficial for you strategically to push out to the 2-hour mark if you can, without having a break. Or maybe you need to have more breaks, right? Maybe you've only got a small fuel tank, or it's very demanding riding and you've got to have more breaks. So like for Think, for example, maybe you need to have 3 fuel stops for the size of the fuel tank that you've got. Maybe you've got a massive fuel tank, you can do 3 hours all at once. This is a guideline. As long as you're moving in the right direction, you're getting 80% of the way there, then that's going to be a great improvement on having no system or no strategy at all. So hopefully you guys found this helpful, and hopefully the audio worked this time. Maybe just give me a thumbs up and let me know the audio is working. Probably a bit late to ask now anyway. For those of you that are interested, I've got another space this week for 5 more 40 to 60-year-old riders for my Faster Laps program. So a couple of types of riders that this is for. This is for riders that want to go for a ride and you want to be able to get fit again without flaring up old injuries. You want to be able to train hard, but not so hard that you can't walk for a week, which kind of ties into what I was just saying before. You want to get stronger using simple movements, not complicated movements that leave you looking like an idiot. Okay, you don't need to jump up and down on a Bosu ball on your hands. This is for riders that want to build their cardio up without running or sitting on cardio equipment for long periods of time. This is for riders that want to improve the overall health and wellness, okay, while only doing 3 training sessions each week. If you want to lose some weight, using meals the rest of the family can enjoy too. We've got meals like chicken schnitzels, shepherd's pie, steaks, no fancy stuff. If you want to have enough flexibility as well to still be able to go out on the weekends and enjoy yourself and have lunch with the family and still lose weight at the same time. And also little to no meal prep. I'm not a big fan of spending hours and hours and hours on the weekend. So a lot of the meals we use are quite simple and easy to put together. Require maybe 5-10 minutes of prep. Some of the meals don't require any prep. So if this sounds like you and you're interested in working together, you can join my Faster Laps program for 40 to 60-year-old riders. I just put a link in the comments for you guys. There's an application link there with a little bit more information on what we cover and what we do. So if that's something you're interested in, feel free to click on the link and apply. Otherwise, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully the audio worked this time. I guess I'll find out in a minute. Otherwise, I will chat to you guys later this week. Speak soon. See you guys.